I'd like to welcome everybody from the Sparx Systems YouTube channel. It's great to have you here. My name's Scott and I'm joined by Stephen. So good morning, Stephen. How are you today?
Very well, thanks, Scott.
That's great. I understand that we're going to be looking at some model types today in Enterprise Architect. So what do you mean by model types and how can we use them?
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, this is essentially reference data. So if we look at the ribbons, we've got the settings window open, and the middle panel there is the reference data panel. And it's called reference data because it's kind of like metadata that's used in various model definitions. So we've used it a few times before. We've used it when we've been defining requirements to talk about the status and priorities and things. So we'll have a look at that today. As always, the first thing I do is set my perspective. And I have been doing some decision modeling and some simulations in the decision modeling space, but we need to focus on UML. So we use the feature in Enterprise Architect to focus in on the thing that we're doing, which is at the moment the UML, Unified Modeling Language. Now we're going to return to our urban parking meter case study example that we've been working through. And if you've watched earlier videos, you'll know some of those things that we've been up to, requirements diagrams and class diagrams and deployment diagrams, all sorts of different diagrams to define our urban parking meter application or system. So back to the topic at hand, we're talking about reference data here, and we've got a drop down here of references. So model types, we've got general reference, people, general types, project indicators, maintenance, and estimation factors. Now, in a previous video, we talked about the UML types. So we've covered those in a previous video. If you want to go back and look at that, stereotypes, and cardinalities, and tag values. But here we have a bunch of reference types. So the first one in the list is people. So people are obviously very important in a project. We've got, a range of different people. We've got project authors here. We can see that we've got Casper, Jenny, and myself, Stephen, that have been contributing as project authors there, and we've got some definitions there. And I can assign roles to there. I can say that Jenny is a business analyst, and that I can save that now, and you can see when I click on Jenny, and I can put some notes on, perhaps on Jenny's experience or the kind of things that Jenny likes to do. Now I can create any number of other authors or roles. So if there wasn't a role in there, my role at the moment is a solution architect. So I didn't notice that in the list, so I'm going to put that there. I could put a description in that as well and some other notes. And I'll say, let me have a look at that. I think I might have, it's going to go new there and put that one in. And I need to put in a description actually to save that. So I'll put in concerned with solution architectures, and now I can save that one. So you can see that one's gone into the list. Now when I choose myself in that list, I can choose the role and I can set myself as a solution architect. So quite useful. There are other items, resources, which are, save that one. There are other resources. So these are people perhaps outside the modeling authoring space that might be important. They might be engineering people that are looking at the meters, or all sorts of other people. Project clients is an important one. It's important that we keep our clients happy, and we could enter those people in there. We could put some names and organization details. An example of that might be the mayor of the city that you're implementing the urban parking meter system in.
You might have city councillors and parking inspectors and
exactly
all sorts of things. Yeah.
So let's leave that up to for the reader, for the listener to finish in your own projects. I encourage you to put them in there because they are very important for the success of the project. And Enterprise Architect has got those listed there. So let's close that. Just one other thing to say with that is that those users were actually populated from the security system, so they don't have to be redone. They were populated from there, and if we enter new people in, they'll go in automatically as project authors. But we could put some other people in there as well. Let's go. Let's close this window we'll talk about security in another video. It's an extremely interesting topic, an extremely important topic. But let's concentrate now back on our general references. So we've looked at people, we've got general types here. So the number of different types that we've got a status, we've got constraints, constraint status, difficulty, priorities, and you can see that what's happening down here is that as I flick through them, the list of values are there, and typically these are going to appear as drop downs in the user interface. So a constraint which might be on an element, it will allow us, when we're defining a constraint, to be able to talk about the constraint type, invariant, post condition, precondition, and also the status of that one as well. Build, validated, proposed. Priority is another one. It's interesting. Difficulty. So let's just have a look at a couple of them. Let's look at this status one. Now, Enterprise Architect comes with built-in types, not because we know exactly what you need to do, but because they help you get started. But as a kind of setup thing or a configuration thing, I recommend that a group of people that are working in an enterprise get together and decide on the kind of the values of these things. Let's look at this one, and let's look at the status here. So let's look at this, and I don't really want this mandatory one in there. I don't think that's going to be useful for our project. So I'm going to delete that one, and I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to call it status in progress.
Yeah.
In progress. And the description is that it might be something like being worked on, currently being worked on, or something like that. Currently being worked on.
And I've noticed a few times that the saved button only comes available once you add a description.
Yeah.
The status. So is that important for Enterprise Architect to know that description and list it?
Yeah, Scott. It's important because I guess the designers, the project team with the application have decided that it's an important thing for you to put in, and you shouldn't be kind of putting things in without having some explanation for the user about what that's about. So let's save that. And the interesting thing here, Scott, is you look at these things and they've got different colors on them. Yeah. So this in progress one, and I like that color there, that green color, but I'm going to change that to this one. And then I don't like that. Yes, I've got some changes there. The validated one, I'm going to change it to a different color. Let's have a look at the colors I've got. I've got blue. In progress, that one. I might change that one, validated to orange. So it's not green yet, and it's not red. Yep. I could put a rejected in there as well. So status is rejected. So the any number of them that you want to put in for a project, then you can. Let's close that for the minute and see how that is used. Let's use our navigation cells to move around the model. We've got our requirements model here, so I just click on this one and I can open up the requirements model. And if you look at this, what's happened here. These ones have been validated, so that's good. I can't see any in progress, Scott, and that's because I only just defined that one. It typically would be done at the beginning of the project, but let's say this payment display, the client, the council is very interested in getting revenue from this parking and making sure that people park in valid spaces. And so let's click on that one and let's look at the status here, this drop-down list over in the properties window. And you can see now that in progress is there. And if I click on that, that changes that color to green. So
at a glance, you can instantly know what the status of various elements are.
Exactly.
And
yeah, exactly.
And you could, for example, if something was mission critical, you could set up a mission critical status and make it red. And so the very first thing people do every day is look at their diagrams and see anything that's mission critical.
Yeah, exactly.
For example.
Yeah, exactly. So you get a very clear picture, and you can see, this diagram is essentially about, yellows and blues, and an
Yep.
orange and a green there. But incredibly useful feature. So let's return now to the general types again and look at some other things. We've got constraints there. We've got difficulties. We've got priorities. Let's have a little look at constraints. So invariant, postcondition, precondition, and a process. So where can we use this one? Let's have a look at, use the arrow key there to get back to our navigation cells. And, let's have a look at our structural model. And we keep returning to the class model because it is a fundamental model in UML. It's kind of the important elements or things that are in our world. So let's select the parking meter. And we have done a previous video, Scott, that I did with a colleague, Tom, and we covered the inspector window. So if I look down here in the application, I can see that there's a panel here, or a window called inspector window. Now with that parking meter selected, if I go onto different elements, the window changes. The inspector window, think about it almost like an element browser. It's like the project browser gives you the whole list of elements, but now with this inspector window, I can look at a particular element and its details. So let's have a look over here. We've got a number of things that have been defined, and some constraints have already been defined. So if I click on one of these, hourly rate is always positive, maximum parking duration is less than 24 hours, meter status must be valid. So some things that constrain this element. So if I look in here and say, open in list, that's kind of a useful thing to do. The window, the responsibilities window pops up here with constraints. And if I look at this one, I can go in here and say modify selected. The hourly rate must always be positive. Now that might seem, seem obvious to people, but it's the kind of thing that gets missed when developers go to work on something. Let's have a look at that. And we can see here that we've got a window that has lots of detail, the constraint itself, the description of the constraint. But over here, Scott, we have the type. It's an invariant, post-condition, precondition process. And we've chosen that it's an invariant. And we've got a status as well. And we define those statuses, build, validated, and the list goes on. So that's where the constraint is applied. And I can, go to any of these other ones here and do the same thing. Say, okay, let's look at the modifier selected. And let's say that this one isn't approved, but is proposed. And we can save that, and that changes the status. And so, incredibly useful feature there.
Yep.
We've got a number of different ones. Look, we looked at scenarios, so let's have a look at that one as well. Open in list, we can do the same thing. There it is. It's in the same window, but in a different panel. And, again, modify selected. And over here, we've got a particular type of scenario. Like in this case, it's a sunny day scenario. Enterprise Architect has got, some great features to be modeling scenarios, but we're not going to look at those today. We've got a structured editor that helps you define those paths and those scenarios. But over here, we've got our type, exception, alternate, and basic, which were defined as part of the reference data that we were talking about. So let's close that. And you can see that there are a number of different types there. One that is, I think, is quite interesting that I will talk about. We've got difficulty there, high, medium, low. We can set those, but the priority one. So here we've got, high, medium, and low. Let's do what you said a bit earlier, Scott. I think that was a really interesting thing. And let's go new here, and let's go, critical.
Yeah.
Right. And so let's save that. We can change the order of that. Critical clearly should be at the top of that list, so we can flick those up. But notice that we've got two different properties here that we can set, the indicator and the color. Let's have a look what we can do with this. So let's say, this one here is a diamond, and let's make the color red as you suggested.
Yeah.
So we'll do that. Let's look at this one here and say we'll leave that as a square. And, let's sort of go down the color spectrum a little bit. We'll make that one yellow, and it's a medium one. Let's make that a triangle, and let's set the color there to maybe to blue.
Yep.
Make it a slightly brighter blue than that. And let's go into this one, make it a circle, and let's make this one green.
Great.
So we've set those, and looking at those, we've set all of those up. We've got our critical one there, and let's close or go onto a different window there, and go back to our priority. Those are there. Let's close that and see how we use these ones. I'm going to go to our requirement model again. So we just navigate back using these navigation cells. We go to our requirements model, and let's look at that. The other thing I can do is click in the diagram canvas, which will allow me to look at all the requirements on the diagram. And if you notice over in the inspector window, it has a number of different panels. It's got the details, the trace, and the summary there. So if I selected an element again and went trace, summary, status, we get those, the status and the priority. So the status was what we defined earlier, and remember this one was validated, and the priority we defined a little while ago as a diamond, a red diamond. Now, if I click inside the diagram itself, notice what happens. I get a report on all of the requirements that are in that diagram and their statuses, which is the status color we define for status, and the priority in terms of the shape of the icon and its color. So you notice also here we've got a number of elements that are nested, and when we expand those out, we get the same icons for those as well.
And at a glance, I can instantly see what's critical. That
Absolutely.
time management one.
Yep. So we need to be working on the time management for sure, Scott. And the orange ones are the next level down as well. So very useful feature. Now back to our model types. We have a number of other ones in here. We talked about the general types. We've kind of covered a lot of those. We've got project indicators for metrics and risks and effort. Again, they can all be set. You can see that you can add a new one, delete an existing one, save them. So and the same and again for maintenance. So we have a bunch of maintenance problem types and test types. So they can all be all be set for the type of problem and are waiting for the type. And the other one is estimation factors, which is a type of use case estimation that includes technical complexity and environmental complexity and default hourly rates and things. So quite a useful thing there, Scott, to do use case evaluations and to try and determine the amount of effort that is required to carry out a particular or implement a particular use case. So that's sort of at the end of the type. So we haven't covered them all, Scott, but the important thing is that people know where it is and know that it's something which you should set up a librarian or an administrator or a group of people that are interested in this metadata should set it up before you start modeling. Not completely critical. You can always go back and change it during a modeling session. Say, look, we actually need something more detailed here, like we added the critical one. So
the more effort you put in at the start defining all of these model types, the easier life becomes as you spend more and more time on the project.
Exactly. That's exactly. A little bit of time up front saves a whole lot of time later and increases your productivity, which is the main game, to make modeling useful and appropriate and delivering value to your customers.
Yep. And those types will change depending on what the project is. So
exactly.
It's great to have all of that customization again. Yeah. I'd just like to remind our audience that you can like, comment, and subscribe on any of our videos. So click the like, thumbs up. We love hearing from you. We love hearing if you have questions about some of the content you've seen. If you have some suggestions for future topics, feel free to leave some suggestions. And we encourage you to subscribe to the Sparx Systems YouTube channel so that you can get access to videos as soon as they go live. You'll be informed about any premieres that we have, and you can find out and be the first to know when things happen on the Sparx Systems YouTube channel. So, Stephen, thanks very much for all the information today on model types. It was very interesting and very valuable. So, appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Always a pleasure, Scott.